Hi, disclaimer. The audio for the first couple of minutes will not be great because I didn't have my microphone plugged in. So bear with that, it'll get better, I promise. Okay? Hello, good morning, welcome back to my channel. Today is gonna be a bit of a chattier video. We're gonna do my favourites of November and also October because I just want to kind of give like a bunch of recommendations. And originally my plan for this was to do it in October, but I missed that end of the month. So in reality this is kind of more of an autumn favourites, but you know, we can work with this. Don't get too hung up on the technicalities. So we have a bunch of categories to get through. We have books, films, TV shows, albums, specific songs, YouTubers, and video essays. As you will see soon, I've been consuming a lot of media, a lot of content. So I'm really excited to get into it though. I always love sharing my recommendations because I have good taste. I keep telling people. No one in real life tends to listen to my recommendations, so I really hope that, you know, someone online maybe does. So first off, we have a book called The Beauty of Everyday Things by soetsu yanagi. This is a non-fiction book. It is a series of very easily digestible essays by the curator of a museum that I actually visited whilst I was still in Japan. The only museum I visited because I couldn't bring myself to go elsewhere. It was a museum of Japanese folk craft. I think it's the Nihon Mingekan, I think. And it's this really small kind of niche museum. A lot of it was curated by soetsu yanagi before, you know, his passing. He kind of talks about Japanese aesthetics within these handcrafted items and what makes them beautiful or what makes certain things ugly. So it's a really interesting kind of it's a very approachable read. It's, you know, the writing's quite simple, but it's really beautiful and it is kind of very effective in that simplicity. I found it really helpful actually, just to reframe my own understanding of kind of like the utilitarian objects that surround us. It does talk about these kind of like folk crafts, these mass produced but handcrafted, very simple but like beautiful and elegant within that simplicity kind of goods. I highly recommend that. I think it's an incredible read. For anyone who's interested in beauty at all, just as a vague concept, I would absolutely recommend this. Just aesthetics in general. Next, I finished White Oleander by Janet Fitch. So this is a book about a girl and her narcissistic mother. Her mother is a poet, but she ends up in jail for killing one of her lovers, which leaves the main character Astrid alone to fend for herself within the foster system. It's absolutely beautifully written. I've been exploring a lot of themes of beauty in the kind of books that I've been reading. One of the main themes of White Oleander is beauty and that kind of idea of how much does beauty absolve you against, you know, the immoral things that you may have or may not have committed. Ingrid, the mother, believes that she can write herself out of prison, essentially. And because she is an artist, they will forgive her for this murder that she has committed. It also explores mother-daughter relations a lot, which I'm always a sucker for. I truly enjoyed this. I did think that at points it did drag out a little bit, but other than that, I think it was really good. I love White Oleander. It hit like, it's so sad. It's so sad. And like the main character cannot catch a break. All the kind of trials and tribulations being thrown at our main character really stressed me out. So if I were to reread it, I think I would either only go over my highlighted sections or just like the initial, I don't know, like 60 pages-ish maybe. The next book I ended up reading is Fashionology, An Introduction into Fashion Studies by Yuniya Kawamura. And this is literally just an academic text about kind of the institutionalized fashion system and the differences between fashion and clothing as concepts. I do need to go back through this because there are a lot of highlighted areas, but the way I tend to read academic texts is I kind of highlight what is important to me when I read it initially, and then I go back a while later to actually annotate, because often I'm not the best at comprehension on the first time round. I think it is a really good introduction. It covers a wide variety of bases, and it has an incredible amount of sources for you to go to from there. Next is a collection of short stories. I read Family Ties by Clarice Lispector. This is my first time reading Lispector, and I was shocked. I was awed. So my favourites from this were Love, which is a story about a woman whose misconceptions about a blind man cause her to have a breakdown, basically. She's on her way home and she has to just she's basically overwhelmed by this reality of life. And the way Clarice writes is basically, she is as if she is trying to mirror the experience of cognition. And I don't know how to explain that without just asking you to read her, really. But she really takes these descriptions of physical sensations or just deliberations, and she dives into them to such a level. She really focuses in on these things. It's like holding up a magnifying glass to life whenever you read Clarice Lispector. And my second favourite was The Imitation of a Rose, which is almost the same. It's got a woman having a bit of a breakdown. But it's really interesting because this woman, I think she had been in a psych ward previously. She comes home and everyone's kind of tiptoeing around her. She's convinced to buy a bunch of roses by, a florist. She can't stop staring at them, and she's kind of neglecting her other duties. It's just this whole story of her contemplating these flowers. She talks about the beauty of the flowers. It is a depiction of a neurotic woman, basically, relapsing into herself. Even the way Clarice writes this, the actual makeup of the text is incredibly neurotic. She repeats herself all over again. It is this idea of fixation that she really manages to capture. Then I read Ways of Seeing by John Berger, or John Berger. It is quite a short text. It's around, I think, 200 something pages, and a lot of them are pictures, so you don't have any excuse. I would say this is a guide to critical thinking. I was kind of expecting more of an art history twist of it, but I did find it quite helpful. It talks about the gaze, I guess, and I'm not talking in a very male gaze kind of way, because that's been completely, the meaning of that is gone whoop. But we're not going to talk about that today. But just the actual idea of seeing something, not just looking at it, but understanding it. It just kind of provides some context to, for instance, oil painting, and then it talks about conventions often and what they arose out of, and it talks about context as well. I think because images are so prevalent, it truly does apply to a lot of things. I think Ways of Seeing is probably quite introductory, but that's what I needed, because I'm getting into it, I guess. That's perfect. It's simple to understand, it has a lot of useful information. Yeah, I would absolutely recommend this if you want just kind of more of an idea of how to view art. Sorry about the microphone. I just realised I didn't have it on properly. These last two books I'm very close to finishing. This is Anaïs Nin's first volume of diaries. What is there to say? What is there to say? It's beautiful. The way she writes, wow. Anyone who's not been put onto Anaïs Nin yet, what are you doing? She's an accomplished writer, but she's also quite a famous diarist. The way she approaches her life and recounting her life is so interesting, because she lives in this kind of world of lies and she's unable to reconcile it all into one part of herself. And she kind of gets involved with Henry Miller. That's where Henry and June came from. By the way, side note, I definitely think that Anaïs Nin and June should have kissed. I know these are real people, I know, but I just, they had a bit of a moment, and I'm not making that up. Anaïs Nin in the diary was like, are we being a bit But Henry annoys me a lot in this book, so I would probably not not so much. This kind of details her life, her affair with Henry later on, her affair with her father? I haven't gotten to that part yet, and I'm not... why would she do that? In this volume, she's very heavily into psychoanalysis, and she goes from kind of a more traditional one to a psychoanalyst who kind of specialises in the artist, so it's more of a humanist kind of psychology, basically. You know, I'm interested in psychology. I did psychology A-level, and I don't know, I read. I feel like you can get to know a lot about psychology if you read. I think a lot, you know, I think about thinking a lot. I think about thinking about thinking. And she is kind of the same in that sense. She thinks about everything. And she recounts her life in so much detail. She casts like an illusion with the way she writes, and illusion is something she talks about a lot, actually. This idea of beauty and illusion and a false reality that you create for yourself, this kind of imagination. So it's incredibly inspiring for any artist, I think, anyone who's creative at all, or who is just a devotee of beauty, or just anyone who supports women's wrongs. There are so many things I cannot support her on. Lastly, another book that I picked up is Your Beauty Mark by Dita Von Teese. So I'm reading this on my iPad at the moment, which is a fun experience. I've never done that before. Just because it was £3 on there and about £25 on Amazon. So, but I love Dita Von Teese. I love the way she approaches glamour and making yourself up as this kind of creation of the self. That's really interesting to me. I binged a bunch of her interviews before buying this book, and so I'm just really happy to finally get more of her mind. Her mind! I love her. I love her so much. She talks about her philosophy on beauty, which, as I said, is always really interesting to hear about. She also talks about her specific beauty tips, and she goes into everything you could possibly want. If you want one guide to beauty, this is it. I'll tell you right now, this is it. She has truly thought of everything. It's not really this single standard of beauty that, for instance, she conforms to that she would be promoting, but it's more this discovery of what your own look should be like, you know? Okay, let's get on to films now. So I obviously read White Oleander. I also watched White Oleander pretty much immediately after finishing it. I feel like that was a bad idea because obviously you're gonna compare the two, and let's just say I didn't really like this film. Feels like it took the book and first of all, it cut out major plot points. Multiple of them, right? Okay. And they changed Ingrid from being a poet to being an artist, which I think is defeating the point because the book is written so beautifully because she is a poet, you know? Because it is this idea of words being used to convey beauty that is being explored. And you would think, well, it's a visual medium, so it's easier to translate, but I don't know. It just feels like something that is unable to exist in a film. And there are so many books like that, which heavily rely on writing as a medium to be able to retain its effect. This was one of those, so I am slightly disappointed in this. In fact, I'm very disappointed in this. Then, I got a little bit silly with it afterwards. I was in a bit of a depression at this point, so I watched Zoolander 1 and 2. Once previously attempted to watch Zoolander 2, which by the way is the worst one, but I was really drunk and I had to leave halfway through, and I didn't remember it at all. So I chose to go back to it, and I loved it. I mean, it's got fashion. I love fashion. It's so silly. What can I say? I love to pretend to be mysterious and smart, but I love a little laugh. I love a little mischief. I also watched Kingsman 1 and 2 because I just wanted some like straight action, and I forgot that this kind of actually was like good. I try to cultivate in myself kind of a good taste through figuring out what I like. But sometimes you just gotta watch something easy, and you know, sometimes you have to accept that it's a good. Otherwise it wouldn't be mainstream. You know, not everything has to be artsy. Although I do prefer most things to be. Also, was it Colin Firth in that film? I forgot, but he looked so good in the church scene, if you know what I mean. Sometimes you just gotta see Colin Firth lose control to Free Bird, which will make a cameo later on. Then I rewatched Eyes Wide Shut with my boyfriend this time. And you know, something about watching films with someone makes you realize all the flaws. I still love it though. Don't get me wrong. I love the culty aspect, I love the psychosexual elements, I love just like the surrealism of it, and I love the fashion. Oh, it's so good in that film. It did drag on a little bit, I do have to admit, but I also think at the same time, like, it's meant to be dreamlike, right? Eyes Wide Shut is meant to be dreamy, surreal. It's meant to not really line up perfectly. And so I feel like these long drawn out scenes really add to that, but also they do drag out. You know, like, I get it, but also, okay, yeah. I watched also Enola Holmes. I don't know, I clicked on it because I was expecting some like Victorian child fun show. Like, not Anne of Green Gables, but like kind of that sort of a Victorian child vibe. I didn't like it. I really didn't. I thought it was boring. I thought she was kind of annoying. I understand everything she's going for, but I just don't understand any of her motivations. And also I just don't like her voice very much. Nothing against Millie Bobby Brown, just personally was not for me. On to TV shows. So I've watched a fair amount of TV shows. I watched Bridgerton a while back. I wasn't expecting to like Bridgerton as much as I did. It's really gorgeous. And it's really gorgeous. And I'm always a sucker for a gorgeous show. And I was expecting it to be more bad than it was. People are dogging on female interests a bit too much right now. I also watched about half of Gilmore Girls, which isn't too much. It's not too much, but I'm probably going to continue it, I hope. But I always get to halfway through and then I never finish it. I got to like season 3 or something. I don't know. But also, every character in Gilmore Girls annoys me deeply. Like, they're human. I get it. I don't relate to any of them. I don't understand any of them. They're insane to me. Very cozy though overall. It's really cute. It's like homely. Next, I watched The Good Place. I watched the entirety of The Good Place in one night. I was having a rough time, okay? It was really entertaining though. It was great and I cried at the end like a baby. People don't give The Good Place enough credit. Like, there was a bit of hype when it first came out, and then it became like that meme where it's like, oh, you're in The Good Place, and everyone forgot about it, when it's like it's a really good way to get you interested in philosophy. I mean, you know, I was interested beforehand, but it's just kind of fun, and it's funny, like genuinely kind of funny. Anyway, I really enjoy it. I think more people should give it the credit that it deserves. Next one. Don't give me any spoilers for this, because I haven't finished it. I'm about 4 episodes in. I started watching Twin Peaks with my mother, because she has a box set. And oh my god, Audrey is such a style icon. I love it. I love David Lynch. I watched Mulholland Drive a while back, and I love the kind of like dream sequences, and I just, everything about it. It's like what I wanted Gilmore Girls to be, because I think Gilmore Girls kind of annoys me. Twin Peaks, on the other hand, love. It's really making me want like a single beauty mark right here, like Audrey has. Anyway, we're on to albums! So, I've been listening to a lot of albums recently, because I like to. So, this isn't in order, actually, I don't think. But I listened to Preacher's Daughter by Ethel Cain. I think I've talked about it on this channel before, because I just loved it so much. I love Ethel Cain. Just this concept album that she's made, it's amazing. And I first discovered Ptolemaea about 2 years ago, and I loved it, and then I only listened to the entire album now. Like, what's wrong with me? What? And it's beautiful, and I love all of it to death. It's so haunting. Like, the way she composes music is so poignant. You'll notice the trend here. I'm not going to be able to describe music as well, because I don't understand what's going on with it. I don't know anything about music, actually. I'm really bad at it. I also listened to Lungs by Florence and the Machine. I've always loved Florence and the Machine. When I was younger, actually, the first 2 songs that I wanted to listen to, which weren't like songs that I'd heard off the radio or my mother's songs, were actually Florence and the Machine songs. They were, I think, What the Water Gave Me and Shake It Out. Or Shake It Off? I think it's Shake It Out, because Shake It Off is Taylor Swift. I always get confused there. But I love Lungs. I love Florence and the Machine, always will. Also, she's a style icon. Put some respect onto her name. She's like the OG witchy folklore. How is one to describe her? You know? Beyond words is what I would describe her as. Then I also listened to Ocean Boulevard again. I must say, Kintsugi has really grown on me. Same with Fingertips. I really didn't like them when I first listened to the album. Kintsugi was stuck in my head for days, actually. I've always loved Lana Del Rey. I love all of her albums. Actually, I think my favourite album is probably Lust for Life. Then I listened to Eldest Daughter of an Eldest Daughter by Kiki Rockwell. This is kind of like an electronic, witchy, kind of chanting vibe. That's how I would describe it in 3 words. Electronic, witchy, and chanting. I need to listen to it a bit more because I've only listened to it once. I really enjoyed a lot of the songs on them. I think they're incredibly catchy and they would be perfect for witchcraft if anyone does witchcraft. I do, but I listened to A Fever You Can't Sweat Out because at my heart I am an emo child. Okay? Though this is pretty much the only Panic at the Disco album that I would go back and listen to because, I don't know, I don't like the other ones that much anymore. I mean, it's a staple, what can I say? This is a comfort listen, but I think maybe we should indulge our younger selves a little bit sometimes. Go back and listen to the music you used to listen to when you were a child. Next album, this is actually a Hungarian one. This is Merem Mondani by Iboya, I think her name is. Yes, no it is. Iboya. I didn't know of her beforehand just because I'm not that clocked into Hungarian culture anymore because I've lived here for pretty much all my life. And there's not much on her Wikipedia. She did write this one really popular song called Magyarország, which just means Hungary, and I think it was meant to be celebratory of Hungary, but then I think she refuses to perform it anymore because she doesn't believe in that ideal anymore, which is a bit telling. Also, she was forcibly outed by the media, which is gross, first of all. Why would they do that to her? Anyway, I was introduced to this by a bunch of Hungarian TikToks that kind of came up onto my For You page out of nowhere. I've never had Hungarian TikToks before, so it was really interesting. Apparently she has a song called Baby, or Baby, which is quite popular among Hungarian girls because it is this kind of feminist, almost swing-inspired song. It has some really good points. It talks about how you should not be prioritizing men and that if you don't want to, you don't have to. But it also has a bunch of other really gorgeous songs. She does this kind of pop but also a bit folk inspired kind of music. Just in case you wanted to try something foreign, you know? There's statistically not going to be many Hungarians here. It's not a language that comes into play very often, but I speak it. Then I listened to Unreal Unearth. I listened to it all in the bathtub. And I cried. I cried at Abstract Psychopomp and Who We Are. I cried at almost every song, which is a bit embarrassing, but what else are you to do when Hosier's Unreal Unearth is on the speaker? I just heard myself do that, and that was actually really annoying. So sorry, am I annoying you? Am I annoying you? Am I annoying you? It's my channel, I can do what I want. I also listened to So Tonight That I Might See by Mazzy Star. Obviously, everyone knows Mazzy Star. Fade Into You, everyone knows Fade Into You, right? But I kind of wanted to see what the album was like, and it's beautiful. It's a really good album to put on in the background. It's not too distracting, but it really provides that ambiance and kind of makes you feel special a little bit. That's why I like to have music on anyway. I have to speed through this a bit because I have a doctor's appointment to get to. I don't have many individual songs, just a couple that I wanted to shout out. Layla by Derek and the Dominoes, banger. I've tried to find that song for so long because I kept hearing it as parts of TikTok edits, but I only found out that it was Layla like recently, so I've been listening to that a lot because I finally found it. I also listened to Freebird. as inspired by Kingsman Part 1. It's so good. I love the guitar solo. It's by Lynyrd Skynyrd, if you weren't aware. Then I wanted to talk about some YouTubers that I've been watching a lot. I was initially going to do video essays, but I only watched one. I just watched one enola video essay about evil milk symbolism. That was fun. I did like it if you want that. Anyway, YouTubers. So, not in order, but I've been watching a lot of Heaven Sent Honey. She is probably my favourite at the moment. She talks about philosophy, beauty, art, literature. She lives her life by beauty and she creates content around this idea, which is very similar to how I tend to live my own life, though I don't tend to make content about it as much. Been listening to a lot of Broski Report. We love an intelligent yet funny woman. You always learn something new with Brittany Broski. She's just good to put on in the background while you're doing chores. Put on the latest Broski Report. I'm binging her because I'm a newfound convert at the moment. I'm still young in the flock. I'd been watching a lot of D'Angelo Wallace as well, you know, with his daily uploads. Unfortunately, he has stopped those since the election. So, yeah. Understandable, by the way. I've been watching a lot of Film Cooper. Now, if you're not sure who this is the Marsha P. Johnson guy, and he's never living that down. Film Cooper, to me, is an interesting critter, if that makes sense. I like to put on his content, but more so I would like to put him in a jar and study his behaviour. Not that he's, like, bad or anything. I quite like him, actually, but that's just... I'm not going to elaborate on that, actually, but he makes commentary videos, he's very funny, and one time he compared himself to Marsha P. Johnson. I don't know what you want me to say. Been watching a lot of Carissa Love. You know, everyone who's witchy, whimsical, an artist. Everyone knows her, I hope. If you don't, where are you? Where have you been? She always makes really lovely content. She kind of fulfills that witchy side in me. I like to watch her vlogs, her media recommendations, what actually inspired this. And she has some great recommendations, I hope you check her out. Also, Steal the Spotlight. I've been binging her videos. She is probably my favourite fashion YouTuber, just ever. I always put her on the TV. I love to watch what outfits she concocts. I think her sense of style is so unique, and she styles things in such an interesting way. Her mind. Also, last but not least, on again, a healing your childhood self moment. Well, not really. I feel like whenever people say they're healing the childhood self, I never understand what they mean by that. I'm like, what do you mean by that? Because people are like, oh, I went into a meditative state and talked to my younger self. Like, what do you mean by that? What I mean by it is I've been watching Dan and Phil games. I didn't realize they'd come back. No one told me. I don't know, sometimes I'm like weirdly offline about some things. It's rare, but it happens. So I've been going back through their videos, because they're on tour right now and not uploading. Been watching a bunch of them, and I think you should also go back and binge watch whatever you watched as a child. And I hope that's Dan and Phil, because if you were that type of kid, you get what's going on, you kind of get my vibe. Dan and Phil were probably a formative experience for me. Anyway, I have to go now. I'm so sorry. I wish I could keep talking to you for longer. But I'm really happy that you joined me. I hope you took some of these recommendations. I have a lot of them, I know. But I've just been on that grind set. I've been learning and watching. I'm back in England. I'm happy. This is my unorganized bookshelf. Don't look at... Oh, there's this ugly sticker here. This is going to be my background for videos, I think. I'm going to put some decoration up here because it feels a bit bland at the moment. Thank you so much for watching. I'm really grateful that you're here. If you liked this, I hope you did. If you like this, please subscribe. Please. It's an option that you have. Only if you want though, because if you don't like me that much, then it's not worth it. If you like my ideas, I will be here to give you more of my ideas. I hope I'll see you later. Please leave a like. Please leave a like or a comment if, for instance, you've read or watched any of these things, or if you have any recommendations for me. I'm open to recommendations. If you wish, you can hit the notification bell. That's I never do that for other people, so that's only if you really want to. I'm not going to expect that of you if I don't do that myself. Anyway, I love you. Goodbye.